All right, so installing wall paneling kits. As you've seen in our last couple videos, we've learned how to install the ceiling to wall trim pieces, our ceiling paneling, plus nuts, and now we're going to go over how to install our vertical supports that we use with both our adjustable bed platforms and our wall panel kits. So if you didn't get an adjustable bed platform from us, your vertical supports are going to come with no hardware in them. If you did, they'll come with hardware pre-installed for your adjustable bed platforms. And if you change your mind down the road and decide you want to get an adjustable bed platform, we can always send you some hardware. You can install it into these holes and go ahead and use that. So it's kind of, you're working ahead if you're going to go that route. And if not, they make the wall paneling kit go a little bit smoother, look a little bit better, and overall just have a nicer finish with your cabinets. So the first thing we're going to do with these is look at our plus nut diagram. So as you were going about installing your plus nuts, you saw that the red ones go in on their own and the pink ones go in through these brackets. So let's go ahead and step in the van and I'll show you how to install these. All right, so we're going to start with the rear vertical supports. Those are the ones that are just a little bit skinnier than the front ones. So you can see they have arrows on them. And that's how you know which side is up. So this guy is going to go up over here because it can't fit over here, right? Because this part has to be on the face, and it's not going to work like that. So you know that it is the right way because there's up. So this one's wrong, it's down, it goes over here. So what I like to do is I like to take our riv nut or plus nut, push it through the hole, and get it lined up with the hole pre-existing in the van. Sometimes you're going to need like a little rubber mallet to get this to go all the way through. Alright, you got your top one in, you're going to make sure you hold it, you're going to get your bottom one lined up. Sometimes you got to kind of push it over, help it in. That one was easy, went in by hand. Then you're going to use your plus nut gun. Remember, your plus nut gun might look a little bit different, but they all do the same thing. Get it in there. Tighten it down, walk it out. Get the top one in there. Beautiful. And now as you can see, this is on there pretty darn good, but we are going to go ahead and add a couple self-tappers into here. If it's just for your wall panels, you can just do a couple self-tappers. If you're doing these for your adjustable bed platform, you are going to want to go ahead and fill every single one of these pre-drilled holes with your self-tapper. However, we do have another video on the channel covering installing these with the adjustable bed platforms because there's another couple steps involved. So if you're doing that, go ahead and head over there. If you're just doing wall paneling, stay here and we'll finish putting these in. So now we have our drill and our self-tappers. Super simple to put these in. I'm just going to make sure you push real hard while you go in. Boom, done. So we're doing like one in the top, two in the sides, one in the bottom. There you go. And now you can see that's not going to move at all. It's not going to rattle. It's going to be very permanently fixed in your van. So the other side is going to be exactly the same. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that real quick, and then I'll show you guys how to install the front ones. Alright, so you can see we've got both our rear vertical supports in. Now we're going to go ahead and install the front two vertical supports. So you can see these are a little bit different. One has two bins and one only has one bin. The one singular bin side is going to go over on the driver's side of the van. And the two bin one is going to go on the passenger side. So we're going to go ahead and start with the passenger side. It is a little bit deceiving because you have two holes here that are super close together. You're going to go in the lower hole, but before you tighten anything down, you just want to make sure that you can get both plus nuts in the top and the bottom before you suck one down, because these things are not that fun to drill out and start over with. So you're going to line it up. Sometimes it's best to go ahead and stick it through here first, if you can. Get it into that hole, and then make sure that the bottom hole down here is lined up right where you need it to be by just going ahead and sticking the next plus nut through. And then go ahead and suck it in with the plus nut gun. you go. And then same thing, we're going to put just a couple, 4 or 5 self-tappers in each of these. This side, the only thing different over here is that we do have a couple more plus nut holes that are used for your wall paneling. So it's not really a structural thing over here why we have twice as many, it's just that it covers the holes that we use to install our wall paneling. So we're going to go ahead and put them in through the vertical supports. So we're going to go ahead and line this up just like we did on the other side. Go ahead and get our plus nuts started. Give them a nice little tap. Alright, so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 vertical supports in, and now we're going to go ahead and start putting in our wall paneling. So at this point, you might be installing your wall paneling because it's already upholstered from us, good to go, or you might be test fitting it, dry fitting it because you're doing a couple things different. If you didn't get a floor from us, it's possible that you might have to trim some off of your panels if we didn't talk about that already. Depending on the height of your floor, if it's different than 1.5 inches, or if you have wiring in different places, or you're doing anything a little bit different, you might have to accommodate your paneling for. So it's always a good idea to test fit, make sure everything fits before you go ahead and finish everything, put it in for good. So one thing when you're doing that is you're not going to want to put the bolts in all the way the first time. You're going to want to get all your panels in and get your bolts just started enough to hang the panels there so that you can kind of, they have a little bit of movement in them. And you're going to make sure that your panels are not overlapping anywhere. They're all lined up perfectly before you tighten them down and put, bolt head marks into your panels. So I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like now. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start installing the wall paneling. We've already gone through our plus nut map. We've made sure that we have all of the plus nuts in the wall where they need to be. We have our vertical supports on, our ceiling panel is installed with the ceiling panel wall trim pieces. I'm going to go ahead and start putting paneling on. So I like to start at the top and work my way down. As you can see, this panel is going to kind of scoot up behind the ceiling paneling. You're going to locate your holes. And sometimes it's helpful to use your T-handle and just stick it into those holes while you're getting a couple bolts started. Alright, so like I was saying previously, you're going to want to make sure that you don't tighten these in all the way when you're dry fitting, or until you have all your panels in. So what that looks like is putting them in to where they're 1/8 to 1/4 inch off the board, because as you can see, even with that bolt in, it's still got a good amount of adjustability to it. And so what I'm talking about is when this panel's in and this panel is in, you want them all to be adjusted to where they look really nice and clean and tight in between each other, and have that slack, be somewhere where it's hidden up behind the other panels or something like that. So we're going to go ahead and get all the panels on and then come back and show you what it looks like to tighten them up and make sure they're in the right spot. Alright, so as you can see, we have all of our panels in the van. However, all the bolts are a little bit loose. So this gives us just a little bit of wiggle room. See, there's a little bit of a gap over here. We can push this up, maybe pull that panel down and close that gap up as we tighten those bolts in and make everything look seamless and perfect. The other reason that you don't want to tighten those down while you're dry fitting is they will, as you really tighten them in, they're just wooden panels and you will leave a bolt mark into the wood or the upholstery panel. A couple reasons that it's important to dry fit besides for panel fitting is also your plus nuts. And there's two things to pay attention to here when you're dry fitting your bolts into your plus nuts, number one is that they're there and they exist and you didn't miss any holes. Especially when you don't do this every day, it's really easy to miss a hole from the plus nut map into the van or put it in the slightly wrong hole. And it's a lot easier to pull that single panel off and add a plus nut now than it is to pull your cabinetry out that you missed a plus nut for and have to come back and redo a plus nut and pull half your van out just to get to that one plus nut. The other thing is to make sure, not just visually that it's there, but actually thread a bolt in, because sometimes for whatever reason, especially with the hand tool, you might not get the plus nut inserted all the way, and as you start to tighten a bolt into it, it'll spin on you, and same thing, it's a lot easier to pull the panel off than the whole cabinet out to fix that plus nut. So those are a couple good things to look out for while you're installing your dry fitting, your paneling. And so now if I were going to go ahead and leave this kit in here, which is, if you're going to do a pre-finished or unfinished paneling kit, this is kind of what it would look like. You just tighten all these bolts in. And now, as you can see, also there is a few more bolts in some areas, like up here we have more bolts on that side than this side. And that's because half of those bolts are actually going to be for holding our cabinetry into the wall itself. Which you'll see that as you hold your cabinets up, you line them up. Okay, this one stays in for the wall paneling. These ones need to come out to help hold in the cabinets. But it's a good idea to put them all in while you're dry fitting your panels to make sure that everything's there and functional. So the next step is I'm going to show you guys real quick how to install your wire chase for this wiring harness on the side of the wall here. That's what this is that I've been waving around. So this guy, it's going to be the full length of the van here. And you're going to want to kind of just put the harness in here and line it up over here. Now the bottom of this wire strip is going to be right at the seam of the upper panels and the lower panels. Again, the bottom of this is at the seam there, and that's so that, especially if you have upper cabinets from us, that's where the cutout is for that strip here. So the top of it will go, it kind of clips into place and makes that seamless and disappears. The way that you install this is you're going to just kind of move the wiring harness to the side and put some really short little wood screws just into the panel here. Towards the rear, you can also use self-tappers and go into the metal of the van. But towards the front here, it's actually called boron steel, meaning you can't drill into it. The one tricky part with this is that depending on your van from Ford, this is one of those things where this harness is sometimes longer and sometimes shorter. You might have a little bit, it feels like it's too much wire harness, and that's not all going to fit in there. I promise you it will. What's helpful is to go ahead and, once you have this all screwed on, maybe put half of your wire chase top on, and then kind of push that excess slack down into that wire chase as you put the rest of the top on, and it'll all squeeze in there for sure. So that's what we're going to do to make that look nice and tidy. Alright, so now that we have our ceiling and wall panels dry fitted in the van, they all look good. We don't need to make any modifications, don't have to cut around any other things we have in the van. We have our bump out rings cut out, our window ring cut out, everything looks good. You can go ahead and pull these out and do whatever you're going to do to them, upholster them, or if they're already done and you've installed them, you're just going to go ahead and walk around, tighten these bolts, make it look beautiful. One tip that I do have for you is if you're putting in a top flooring, as you can see, this is just our subfloor system here. If you're putting a top flooring in over that, you're going to want to do that first before you get the wall panels finally installed, because you don't want to get any glue on these. Sometimes the flooring will go under the bottom of the wall panel here by 1/4 inch, and it just makes it a little bit tricky to get that installed nicely. So put your flooring down first. I like to do ceiling next and then walls, and you'll be set to go. If you have any questions, hit us up in the comments, send us an email, or we probably answered it in another video on the channel. So start there.